I love video games. And when I think of Nintendo, I think of comfort, nostalgia, and creativity. The Nintendo Switch is probably my favorite console. It's portable, friendly, and packed with games that have been part of my life since I was a kid. But for this fieldwork project, I decided to turn the Switch into something else. Not just a device I play on, but an object of investigation. I wanted to look beyond the screen. I wanted to ask, where does this come from? What's the journey of its materials? What's the cost? Not in dollars, but in environmental terms. This project follows three core steps: estranging an object, seeing something familiar as strange, tracking a commodity chain, following the materials and labor that create it, developing an oil inventory, tracing the energy and emissions that power it. So this is the environmental story of my Nintendo Switch. The Switch might look simple: plastic casing, screen, buttons, but it's made of over 60 elements, including precious and rare earth metals. Most of them come from mines across Africa, Asia, and South America. Let's talk about cobalt, found in the Switch's lithium-ion battery. Cobalt makes batteries stable and rechargeable. Around 70% of global cobalt is mined in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC. According to Amnesty International and SOMO, this mining is often linked to child labor, unsafe conditions, and extreme environmental damage. Mining activities in the DRC have caused water pollution, deforestation, and displacement of local communities. Toxic runoff from mines poisons rivers, kills crops, and affects thousands of people who rely on local ecosystems. Then there's gold, used in the Switch's internal circuit boards and connectors. Even in tiny amounts, gold has a huge environmental footprint. Open-pit gold mining often uses cyanide and mercury, releasing hazardous chemicals into the environment. These substances accumulate in soil and water, with long-term consequences for biodiversity. Nintendo does publish an annual conflict minerals report, saying they strive to source ethically and audit their suppliers. But critics, including watchdog groups like the Enough Project, say the tech industry overall still lacks full traceability and enforcement. The truth is, we just don't fully know where every bit of these materials comes from. This first step in the Switch's life cycle, extraction, is already deeply tied to environmental destruction and human exploitation. Once the raw materials are extracted and refined, they're shipped to factories, mostly in East and Southeast Asia. Nintendo's main manufacturing partners include Foxconn and Hosiden, located in China and Vietnam. These companies assemble consoles from parts sourced from suppliers like NVIDIA for the chip, Sharp for the display, and Murata for capacitors. But this global network is vast and opaque. Each of those parts has its own supply chain, its own emissions, and its own waste. For example, manufacturing the Tegra X1 processor involves extremely energy-intensive processes, etching tiny circuits into silicon wafers inside clean rooms that require massive electricity and water. The next step is distribution. Switch consoles travel across oceans on cargo ships, mostly powered by heavy fuel oil, one of the dirtiest fossil fuels. According to the International Maritime Organization, shipping accounts for approximately 3% of global carbon emissions, and that's just from moving goods. Every container ship burns thousands of liters of fuel a day, producing not just CO2, but sulfur oxides, which contribute to acid rain and respiratory issues. And yet, most consumers, including me, never think about this step. Even packaging matters. Nintendo uses cardboard, plastics, and dyes, some recyclable, some not. All require raw materials and processing. Even a small part of the Switch's carbon footprint comes from the box it came in. This stage shows how deeply interlinked our everyday tech is with a massive global energy system, mostly powered by fossil fuels. Now, the console's here, in my hands, in Whitby, Ontario. But its environmental journey isn't over, because now it's about how I use it. Every time I plug in my switch, it draws from Ontario's power grid. According to the Independent Electricity System Operator, our power comes from a mix of nuclear power around 60%, hydroelectric power around 25 to 30%, a bit of wind, solar, and natural gas. That might sound pretty green, and in some ways, it is. Nuclear and hydro produce very little direct carbon, but both come with their own costs. Nuclear power, like that from Pickering and Darlington stations, depends on uranium mining, which has environmental and health impacts, especially in communities near the mines. Nuclear plants also produce radioactive waste, which we still don't have a permanent solution for. Hydroelectricity, while renewable, often involves flooding ecosystems, disrupting fish habitats, and displacing indigenous communities. There's no truly impact-free form of energy. And there's more. When I play online games, download from the eShop, or use cloud saves, I'm relying on data centers, massive server farms that run 24/7. According to the IEA, data centers account for 1 to 1.5% of global electricity consumption, and that's rising as more people game online. So even when the console is idle or downloading a patch, it's consuming energy somewhere else in the world. I realized that every hour of play is tied to invisible emissions, both local and global. This project changed the way I see my Nintendo Switch. It made me understand that even something joyful, creative, and harmless seeming is part of a massive system of extraction, emissions, and ecological impact. To be clear, Nintendo is not the villain here. In fact, it ranks relatively well compared to some tech companies in terms of energy use and conflict mineral policies. But the problem is bigger than any one company. It's systemic. It's about how we make things, move things, and power things. So what can we do? We can push for transparency. Ask Nintendo and other companies to publish full supply chain audits and carbon data. We can consume more consciously, keep devices longer, buy digital when it reduces waste, or offset emissions. And we can recognize our place in this system, not with guilt, but with awareness and responsibility. Because behind every game, every console, every moment of fun, there's a world being impacted. And that's something worth thinking about. Thanks so much for watching. I hope this made you think a little differently about the things we play with and the planet we play on.